Good evening. Have you ever lost everything in a second? Had your whole life taken away from you? Left with nothing, with nowhere to turn, nowhere to talk to, nobody to talk to, the walls closing in, no sense of any potential hope for the future. It happened to me once on August the 5th, 2000, and I want to tell you a little bit about that, a little bit about how a drunken answer to a friend's question soon afterwards changed my life forever, and why today, 25 years later almost, I look back on August the 5th, 2000 as one of the best things that ever happened to me, and I'm very, very grateful for it. So I was in a relationship with my best friend for 7 years. We had been married for 363 days of those, so we were 2 days short of our first wedding anniversary. We had a wonderful life. We had our own home in a beautiful village near Oxford. We had enough money. We had a great social life. There was a wonderful village pub which we used to go to a lot, and so really life was perfect. And then about a week before August the 5th, my wife started being very, very quiet, and I asked her what the problem was, and she said, everything's fine. And the next day I said, come on, tell me what's the problem. Everything's fine. And this went on for about a week until on August the 5th, we went to bed. I turned the light out, said good night. I lay there for a few seconds. I turned the light back on. I looked her straight in the eyes and I said, just tell me what's wrong. Do you not love me anymore or something? And she looked at me with these very, very sad brown eyes and a very sad smile. And she said, no, I don't. And she laughed and I laughed, and it was such an absurd situation. And then I realized that our relationship was over. There was nobody else involved, she told me, but 3 days later she found herself in a relationship with a hairy truck driver who she went on to marry and have 2 children with. And so she moved out and I was left in this beautiful home that we'd renovated with all the memories on my own. She had asked me if it was possible to wait until her parents came back from a 2-month holiday because she wanted to tell them first before anybody else, because she wanted her parents to know that we were no longer together. And I agreed. She was my best friend and I was trying to help her out. So for 2 months, I was stuck in this prison of our home without her. I'd lost my wife, I'd lost my best friend. But also what I realized was that all our friends were her friends. It just kind of happened that way. And I looked around and I maybe had 1 or 2 friends and that was it. And wherever I looked, there was just emptiness, nothingness. Without her, there was nothing. And the only real friend I had in those times was a friend that's been my friend for life, alcohol. And so I would go to the village pub at lunchtime and I would have 5 beers. And then I would do my job. And then I would come back in the evening and I would have about 12 beers. And then I would sit back at home and I'd have a bottle of or 2 of wine and sit and just cry. And I was really, really in a mess. And I saw no future, no hope. I had no one to talk to. I was so alone in my life. She was, I could see she was very happy and she'd moved on and so on. And so one evening I was in the pub and my neighbor was sitting next to me and he said to me, Paul, you're here every single night, you're just drinking. You cannot do this for the rest of your life. You'll kill yourself very, very soon. What are you going to do? And I was already a bit drunk, and I said to him, you know what? I'm going to hitchhike autostop to South Africa. And he laughed. The whole pub laughed. He went to the toilet. And as he went to the toilet, 2 things happened. My beer was about half full still. But the barmaid was already pouring the next beer for me because she knew how quickly I was drinking. And the second thing I thought was, why not? I looked around at my life and what was it that I actually had in my life? I was desperate, there was nothing going on. I didn't have a best friend anymore. I didn't have a partner, a wife. I didn't really have all the friends I thought I had. I no longer had a house because I had to sell it. I hated my job. And actually, I didn't really have anything whatsoever. And this crazy idea came to me as he was in the toilet and she was pouring the beer. Is this the life I want for myself, or is there something else? And would it really be so crazy to walk out of this pub and to hitchhike to South Africa? I know it sounds a crazy, crazy notion, but would that really be such a crazy thing? And so Darren came back from the toilet and he said, okay, very funny, what are you going to do? And I said, you know what? I'm going to hitchhike to South Africa. And today is the 24th of November. 3 months from today, on the 24th of February 2001, I will come to this pub at 11 o'clock when it opens. I will have 2 beers. I will have a half-size rucksack. And when I finish my second beer at exactly 11:37, I will get up, say goodbye to anybody who's here, put on my rucksack, walk past the house, walk past the place that they were together, walk past this memory, walk past that memory, walk 5 kilometers down to the motorway with a little sign saying South Africa. And I will start to hitchhike. And everybody laughed. And for the next 3 months, I was in the pub every night, and I was drinking 5 beers, not 12. I wasn't there at lunchtime. But I was there on my own, and I had Lonely Planet Western Europe, Lonely Planet Eastern Europe, Lonely Planet Middle East, Lonely Planet East Africa. And I was planning my trip. Before we were together in a previous life in the 90s, I was a humanitarian aid worker. I worked in Rwanda just after the genocide in 1994. I worked in some of the former Soviet republics in 92, 93, after the fall of the Soviet Union, Georgia, Azerbaijan, Tajikistan. And I'd formed some good friendships in that humanitarian aid world. But when I came out and was with her, I let all those relationships die. And so I made my itinerary. And I emailed all my former aid worker friends, and I said, I'm really sorry, I've not been in touch. I met a girl, you understand. She left me, you understand. Now I'm back in touch. I'm doing this trip. If by any chance any of you are working in any of these countries, or you know somebody that is, then could you, let's meet, let's be in touch. The response was amazing. I ended up traveling through the Balkans for 2 weeks with a really cute girl from Tajikistan I'd met in 1994, and we hooked up, and that was great. I found a guy in Eritrea, and I had the most amazing 9-month experience where I really saw not only distance between my pain, but I saw a lot of pain on the road, and I started to understand other people's relationships, and it helped me to put things into perspective. But on the 24th of February at 11 o'clock, nobody believed I was going to leave. And I came in, there were 25 friends, no one believing I was actually going to go. And I came in there, and at 11:36, I was talking to my dad. I had half a pint left. I realized I had 1 minute left in my life. And so I finished my beer. I stood up, I shook his hand. I said to everybody, thank you for coming. I'll never forget the fact you were here today, but now I have a new life to start. And I literally turned around, put my little rucksack on, walked out, never looked back, walked all the way down to the motorway, and put my little sign, South Africa. It was February, cold, and I think I was there for about an hour and a half. I think about 500 cars came down, and it was the same reaction every time. They were like looking at the sign. And so it was getting a little bit depressing. But then eventually this one guy stops, and I'll never forget what he said. He said, I'm sorry I can't take you all the way, but I can take you as far as Oxford, which is like 10 miles. And I said, that is perfect. And when I got into his car, my new life started, because nothing was going to be the same again. And I cannot tell you how liberating, how refreshing, and everything that was. During my trip, my soon-to-be ex-wife had a baby, not mine, and that was another emotional sort of trauma and so on like that. And after the 9 months, I was in a plane crash, I was in a gun battle, I went to see some genocide suspects who were working for me in Rwanda in '94, went to the prisons. I mean, I had a really, really intense experience. And if anyone's interested, there is a book on Amazon called Lebanese Nuns Don't Ski, where the first line is, what would you do if your wife ran off with a hairy truck driver? And it basically tells the whole sort of story, so you can see that. But when I got back, I went to the pub 9 months later, and I'll never forget this. I walk in, and there is Sarah, the lovely barmaid. She looked at me, she smiled, she was pouring, and she said, the usual, as though nothing had changed. And in her life, nothing had changed, and in my life, everything had changed. I then went to, our house was still for sale, but it was empty. So I went to borrow a mattress and a couple of plates from my wife because she had all the furniture. And I knocked on the door, and she opened it holding a baby, which was an incredibly weird feeling when you've been with somebody for 7 years. And that's the last time I ever saw her. Never saw her again after that. And she married this guy and apparently divorced him, and I have no idea where she is now. So, and so I was left with this new life. I learned a really important sentence, which probably helped me more than anything else, really. It takes a second to hate. It takes a lifetime. Sorry, it takes a second to forgive. It takes a lifetime to hate. And if you can learn to let go of all your bad emotions, because they just take energy, and just move on, it's super, super helpful. On my trip, I ended up getting a job in Somalia, in East Africa. So I went to live in Somalia. And because I had this liberated feeling about life, I was ready to do anything. So I ended up with an armed guard going around eastern Somalia, where all the pirates are, and doing some aid work there. And then one day I saw this, the house sold, and I saw this beautiful advert on CNN, Croatia, the Mediterranean as it once was. And I thought, I want to buy a house there. So I ended up coming to Hwaren in Jelsa, and I bought a house in Jelsa, where I met an amazing, wonderful woman. And we were together for 20 years, 2 great kids. Definitely the best thing that ever happened to me in my life. And I had that amazing experience of 13 years living on Hwar with a wonderful family. And that just is absolutely, was absolutely everything for me. But then what I realized also was I was so eaten up and destroyed by what happened on the 5th of August in 2000. But as time went on, I started to respect my wife for the decision that she'd made. Because we'd been together for 7 years, we'd had this wonderful wedding with 100 people, she was half South American, so everybody had come over. And that she was brave enough, after 363 days, to say, this is not working, to me was an incredible thing, looking back when I took my emotion out of everything. And she gave both me and her a chance to start again. And so when the divorce papers came through, it was about 2 or 3 years later, and I was living in Jelsa in this new relationship, and life was very happy, and I got this letter, and I had to pay £300 to my wife for the legal expenses and so on. And I read it, and just a flood of emotion came, and I started crying, and it was just getting everything out about the time, but I'd moved on. But I thought, I'm going to write her a letter, just to say, first of all, I'm doing fine, if you're interested. But also, I just want to thank you for being that brave. And by doing this, I let all my sort of bad energy out on the paper, and it was a 10-page letter. I was crying into the thing. You could see there were teardrops on the paper. And I wished her well. I said, whatever happens, we probably won't see each other again, but I genuinely wish you well, and I hope that life is good. And I enclosed the check for £300 for the legal fees, and I sent it off. 5 days later, the check for £300 was cashed, and I never ever heard a response to the letter. And that's fine, because from my side, that chapter was closed. I'd learned a lesson, and what I've taken from that moving forward is that as long as you're at peace with yourself, then if you're mentally strong and you have your right mindset, then you can achieve anything. And so now I'm living in your beautiful country for 22, 23 years. I think it's an amazing place to be. I have this blog. I'm now a vlogger, and I'm the fattest and oldest TikToker in Croatia as well. And I just love the fact that I have been given this second chance of life in something totally different that I would never have got involved in my life. If I'd had my old life and we'd been together, I would still be selling wine in the UK. I'd be really, really bored. But this really sort of brought to me like a new opportunity. I got the chance to have a family. I got a chance to write books. I got a chance to be a vlogger, and now I'm doing crazy things like yesterday I decided to show how hard it is to go by train from Zagreb to Belgrade. So I don't know how many of you know the story, but the train was discontinued 4 or 5 years ago, and so I want to highlight the absurdity. So we left at 6:20 to Vinkovci. We got to Vinkovci at 10:48. We had a lunch with a friend of mine in Vinkovci. We had 2 hours to wait. 12:55 to Tovarnik. We got to Tovarnik at 1:30, and then we had to walk 8.5 kilometers through the border to Šid. And when we got to Šid, there was a train coming into Belgrade, and we arrived in Belgrade at 6:53 last night. So it was 12 hours 33. And of course, me being brilliant, I'd completely messed my dates up. And that was yesterday in Belgrade, and I'm supposed to be here tonight. And the only option I had was to take the overnight bus last night. So I took the bus at 12:30 last night. I got in at 6 o'clock this morning, had a bit of a sleep. So I did Zagreb, Belgrade, Zagreb in just under 24 hours. So, but now, I'm going to do a vlog about this, and already I'm getting contacts from different politicians and stuff about this, because this is a bit of an outrage, and so hopefully we'll get the thing reinstalled. But this is the sort of interesting kind of fun stuff that I'm able to do. And so I guess in conclusion, I was very fortunate we didn't have children, so I didn't have any ties. But in conclusion, if things really are bad in your life, don't be afraid to look at the options, even if they seem a little bit nuclear at the time. And it really is possible to start again. I'm the living proof of that. And the first part of my life until August the 5th was great. I had a great time. The time I've had since August the 5th has been 25 times better. And that's why August the 5th, 2000 for me is one of the days I celebrate every year. Thank you very much.